Welcome to Buckeyes Tomorrow Morning for Tuesday, August 18th. I'm your host, Tom Orr. The Ball State game in 18 days, the game against Michigan in 102 days. Thanks to our friends at Jeff Ruby's Columbus for sponsoring today's episode. They are proudly offering nationally acclaimed U.S.D.A. prime steaks, seafood and sushi, impeccable service, live entertainment, and an attention to detail that is simply unmatched. Just go to jeffruby.com/Columbus to check out the menu and make a reservation today. All right, we're talking recruiting on today's show. We're going to welcome in recruiting insider Juck Miletti from BuckeyeInsiders.com. He just wrote an article about whether the Buckeyes are maybe going to be going all in at defensive tackle in 2028. And I thought, you know what? Not only is that a great show, I can even steal that as a title for YouTube. So there you go. You can see the all-in thumbnail on YouTube already. So I guess part of the question, Juck, is that they're going all in potentially, could be, at defensive tackle in 2028. A lot of that has to do with what they did in 2027, where they put a lot of resources in the defensive line, but more at the end position.
You know, it's a whole new conversation we get to have now with roster construction, where it used to be you're just going for the best you could get everywhere. Now it's where would it make the most sense to invest the most at which position? And the prerequisite for that, Tom, is having those relationships to begin with those guys that you can then invest in. And when we look at defensive tackle, they have successfully established some relationships with some of the top tier guys that they really, really like. And the interest is reciprocated, which now puts them in the position, if they want to go all in, to be able to continue to push in that direction. And I think it would fit awfully nice coming off the class of 2027 with the defensive end pool they got, in addition to Kari Wilder and Drake Quinn in 26.
And they already have a very good start at the defensive tackle position for 2028. If you pull up the top, the 247 composite, we're going to be talking about 3 of the top 4 guys at the defensive tackle spot on this show, and plus a couple other guys, one who I really, really liked at camp. We'll get to him a little later on. But the good news for Ohio State is they've already got one guy in the class who is a top 4 defensive tackle in the 247 composite, and that's Jameer Whyce. And I think that's a name where they got him a while ago, and it might have even been earlier before the rankings had even come out. So I think it's just a name that people heard and went, "Oh, good, they've got an in-state guy. That's wonderful." That's already a pretty good building block for this class.
It's a fantastic start, obviously. I mean, it's similar to starting 2026 with, or 2020, 26 with 2027. These are all getting jumbled when we start getting out a couple years with Jameer Brown, where he was an early 5-star. And, you know, he's in so long in advance that it tends to slip people's mind what a big deal that was getting him. That's the same deal with Jameer Whyce, who's a legit, 5-star monster on the defensive line out of Trotwood Madison, and a guy who's just football in the family. Older brothers play football. He's at Ohio State all the time. We've seen him several times down there hanging out. He's a humongous young guy, moves great. And he is actively trying to peer recruit other guys, like some of the guys we're talking about here today on this show. So he seems really locked in, and that's great.
Yeah, he's from Trotwood Madison down in the Dayton area, and it is not all that far down I-75 from Dayton to Louisville, Kentucky, and the Christian Academy of Louisville, got to say it correctly. Kellen Hall, the number 1 defensive tackle in the 247 composite for 2028. He's someone that we saw at camp back in June, and sometimes you see the guys, you're like, yeah, I guess I can kind of see it. This one was like, yep, I get it. I understand where this is coming from.
He dazzled, there's no doubt about it, and he checks every single box. 6'4", 265, and they have played him offense line, defensive line, all over the defensive line for the time that he has been there, and he has excelled everywhere from the edge to the nose in some pretty quality football. It's not like it's some podunk football. He plays in a pretty good league. And what maybe is most impressive is you talk to him, he's like a 22-year-old guy already. And he absolutely loves Ohio State, loves Larry Johnson. They have a great relationship. Larry has gone down and visited him at his school, one of the first coaches to do that. And that really stands out to him, as well as the proximity of Ohio State. He wants his parents to be able to watch him play every Saturday. He's, every time he says he comes up, he falls asleep. And when he gets up, they're there on the car ride. So everything looking really, really well for Kellen Hall, as the Buckeyes and the Sooners, I think, currently lead the way right now in his mind.
Number 2 defensive tackle in the class of 2028. And again, I'm using the 247 composite here. That is Tyzon Swann. And I know this is a guy, you wrote about this in your article. This is a guy where the opinions have changed a little bit here on Tyzon Swann.
So this is interesting, Tom. When we were at camp, and this was a separate day from Kellen Hall, after Kellen Hall, in comes the number 2 defensive tackle in the class, Tyzon Swann. And looking at these two and comparing these two, I've been seeing them, in, I don't know if it was back-to-back or maybe one day in between. Well, it wasn't the same. It was not the same. Tyzon Swann was not really checking the boxes for me. He wasn't stacking up. And granted, I didn't spend the entire camp with him, but I came away thinking, he's good. He's maybe a top 250-ish kind of guy, but that ranking sure to change. And then I watched his film, which I hadn't watched ahead of time, and he's an absolute demon. I mean, a total monster, an insane stat stuffer, like numbers I haven't seen in a long time from an interior defensive lineman. And the get off is there. Everything's there. And it's just like, did this guy just have a horrendous day? Was he not into it? What was the deal with him when he was at that camp in front of Larry Johnson that didn't look anything like what I'm seeing here? Now, what would we prefer? We prefer he balls out on Friday than has a great camp, but you'd like both of them there. Nonetheless, I'm sold now. I wasn't when we left camp. And this is a guy who, again, interested in the Buckeyes, a kid from Maryland, and he's not anywhere close to narrowing down his choices. He's still at about 10. He has committed to taking a visit at Ohio State, hasn't chosen the date yet for this season. That's amongst like 7 other visits that he'll be going on. So we're a long ways out on Tyzon Swann, but the relationship is certainly there and started. There's been, visits and contact, and it's moving in the right direction. Should that be a guy they need to go on? But definitely Kellen Hall, the clear number 1 target for LJ.
Next up, another guy from the state of Maryland. This is Nikolas Stevens. He comes from DeMatha High School, which is a school that the Ohio State defensive line room and Larry Johnson, very familiar with DeMatha High School. You may remember that school from such players as Jason Moore and, oh yes, by the way, Chase Young. I would imagine when you're recruiting a player from DeMatha High School, Chase Young, and the thumbs up from Chase Young to a defensive line coach is probably not a bad thing for you.
No doubt. And Nikolas told me he really wants to keep that, the tradition going, pumping out top tier defensive linemen. And of course, Jason Moore, he was a top 75 player in the country coming out. And hopefully maybe this year he can reach that lofty status. He's looked much better than he ever has. But Nikolas Stevens, as far as, the rankings, this is a borderline top 100-ish guy. So not quite as top tier as the other two we talked about, but certainly one of these guys that would count as a really, really huge score coming in like a Carlos May as a top 100 guy. And I really like this game. He's a bigger guy than Kellen Hall and Tyzon Swann. He's pushing 300 pounds, and he moves, just a tick slower in just about everything. But that's elite for a guy that's, about 293 pounds now. So really like his game, love his film. And he told me that right now, LSU, Tennessee, and Ohio State are the 3 schools that he's got at the top of his board. Also, another really, really impressive kid like Kellen Hall when it comes to maturity and the type of guys that Ohio State, right? The prerequisite for Ohio State to be able to do this, they got to believe in you as a guy. You got to be a responsible, you got to have the right priorities. You got to be, intelligent and have goals. And these 2 guys, I didn't talk to Tyzon Swann, but Kellen Hall and Nikolas Stevens certainly fit the bill of guys that we could see them going in for.
And one more guy who is come from a pipeline, well, not quite a pipeline, but a school where Larry Johnson has pulled some very talented players in the past, from JT Tuimoloau's high school, Eastside Catholic in Sammamish with Washington, Aedyn Havili. And we don't always have the full list of campers every day when we show up at those June camps. And he was not a name that I had on my list as watch out for this guy. He was this is my favorite kind of player at those camps. Who is that guy? He was who is that guy? Tony Gerderman and I were in there. They were on the indoor at that point. And Tony Gerderman and I looked at each other like, who the heck is that? And he is 320 pounds. He does not move like he is 320 pounds. he feels like he is going to be that is a guy you just look at and go, yep, that's going to be a good college football defensive tackle.
I'll tell you what, man. I talked to Tony. Now, I missed this camp. I talked to Tony and you during or right after. I think, that excitement kind of said it all. Obviously different player from the guys that we just talked about at 320 pounds, also really sawed off at about 6'1.5". And the type of guy that, some schools shy away from, Larry doesn't. Larry will, that doesn't bother him one bit. He'll take that sawed off 320 pounder that is one of those dancing bear types. But the foot speed shows up on the film. I know Tony was just blown away by his feet at the camp. And this is a guy who has shot up the rankings here over the summer because everywhere he went, he did what he did with you guys at Ohio State, which was just, who the hell's that guy? And that's, he's a big time deal now. Obviously, Washington is heavily in trying to keep the Washington kid home. And he has interest all over the country, but definitely the Buckeyes with a good in over there at Eastside Catholic with G. Scott and JT Tuimoloau. So things look pretty nice for potential relationship building there, and this would be a guy that you'd certainly love to have here in this class.
All right, well, 1 5-star defensive tackle already in that class of 2028. 4 more names there to know, and there's going to be plenty more recruiting to talk about. We still got to see them finish the 2027 class before you can turn the page to the 2028s. But man, there's a lot to talk about. There's already a 2029 thread on the Insiders board at BuckeyeInsiders.com, and it has been busy this week as well. There's been a ton of recruiting talk. If you enjoy recruiting talk, that is the place to be. Juck is our recruiting insider. You can find him there on the Insiders board presented by Jeff Ruby's Columbus. That is all at BuckeyeInsiders.com. We got our team insiders covering the Buckeyes. We got a recruiting insider. We got our scheme insiders. We got our basketball insider. You can find it all at BuckeyeInsiders.com. And thanks again to our friends at Jeff Ruby's Columbus, the award-winning upscale steakhouse in downtown Columbus, named one of the top 50 steakhouses in America by Food Network. Just go to jeffruby.com/Columbus to check out the menu and make a reservation today. That will do it for today. Thank you guys all for joining us. Have a great day. We will talk to you tomorrow.